if by the time this airs that will be officially announced.
Does that put a lot of pressure on you?
There's a lot going on.
Comments were brutal.
Like, how do you handle that?
I think one of the biggest challenges with FD is...
Well, it's getting banned soon, so that's
Yeah.
why I was
Is it
wondering,
actually, though?
You slid in his
camera
DMs?
Big news for Collete.
What happens next for you?
We have 18 chickens.
I've got a hot take on this. I can go and beat the shit out of them.
Your attention to detail is very impressive.
There's been so many things that have happened.
I told myself I would never date a car guy.
Thank you guys for joining us again today for another Slush Motorsports podcast. Today we have a very special guest, and I'm very excited to do this podcast with these two. Someone that both of these people, I've been watching them for a long time, and they have a huge impact on car culture. But before we go ahead and dive into this, my name is Phil, and I have my co-host with me today, Hunter Adams. Thank you for being with us today, Hunter.
Yeah, it's exciting to be down here at the LZ compound. We got a full tour with Kim, Colette's manager, earlier, and man, it really opened my eyes to how much work you put into this place.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
It's amazing. But without further ado, I would love to introduce Collete Davis and Adam LZ. Thank you guys for being on today's podcast with us.
Thank you.
How's life going? Is everything going good?
It's going great. I would say there's a lot going on right now. I know just in the beginning of the year, planning what our entire 2025 is going to look like, but all really exciting. So happy to have you guys here.
That's good. Health good, family good.
Yeah, health good, family good. We have 18 chickens.
You have
They
18
are all
chickens?
thriving. We have 2 dogs doing great. We have a cat. Yeah, awesome.
That's awesome. That's good to hear. So 2025, you guys got some new goals coming up, obviously. Can you share with us what 2025 is going to be looking like for you guys?
Yeah, for me, I'm kind of changing the competitive structure a little bit. So last year, I put my main focus in Drift Masters and then kind of did FD as we'll see how it goes.
Mm-hmm.
This year, I'm focusing mainly on FD again. And then Drift Masters, I'm just doing a round or two here or there. And then big news for Collete.
Yeah, big news for me is that I'm making my debut in Formula Drift, which I am super excited about. That's definitely been the goal. Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah, so it's finally happening. So with that, I'm really excited, but also that means there's a lot of work that needs to be done. So I'll be competing my first year in the FD Prospect Series.
That's
I'll be
awesome.
there at all the rounds with Adam, obviously, and then competing for the 4 Prospect rounds. I have a Hot Wheels diecast coming out in March, which
Nice.
I don't know if by the time this airs that will be officially announced, but maybe we'll tell everybody first here.
That's
and
awesome.
it's going to be around one of my most iconic cars, which is my 3-rotor RX-7, which was the build that started everything for me. So that is just a huge moment. And also launching a new company later this year. So
That's huge.
a lot of things going
Yeah.
on, but all really exciting stuff.
That's very huge. Congratulations. Does
Thanks.
that put a lot of pressure on you being in Formula Drift now? Like how do you handle that?
For me, like, pressure has always been motivating. So I think, like, if there's not pressure there, eventually you start to wonder, like, what are you doing? Or, like, what's next? And you get that itch. So for me, like, FD has been a goal, like, in this drifting journey that I'm on. That's been a huge goal of mine. And I'm excited for the challenge. FD is a lot different than any other competition that I've ever done. I have a brand new chassis that I'm still learning now that I'm going to be competing with later on this year when I make that debut, going from a Corvette to an E46, which finally I just joined the bandwagon.
You did.
And I finally just gave in, okay? I got a BMW after honestly talking a lot of crap about them.
Yeah, that's two completely different platforms too.
And I was a hater on the E-chassis for a while because I got an E36 to be a stock, basic, reliable drift car and ended up immediately going through 3 engines. So I was just the biggest hater of BMWs and the E-chassis for drifting. And this E46, I finally just jumped on the bandwagon, trusted Adam, and bought a already built pro car, knowing I was going to hopefully make my debut in FD this year, and went straight into competitions with it and fell in love. So I'm seeing the lights.
So
and it's
Adam,
exciting.
he brought you to the dark side.
He did, and like Drift HQ too. You know, like
Yeah.
I am surrounded by BMW people. I was like
That
the
makes
one
sense.
in the few that was holding out, and yeah, it's a great chassis, and I have everyone around me that knows so much about them. You know, I have Drift HQ, Duarte, Adam, obviously, Chelsea Denofa, like right down the road,
Right.
and they all have pretty much mastered this platform, so it's definitely gonna help me.
So Adam, what makes you choose E46 drift car over a Corvette drift car?
In her case, I think the easiest way to explain it is like going into professional drifting. A lot of people get really wrapped up in the car and they build something new and exciting, and it's such an important part of the puzzle. I would say it's like 30% driver, 70% your car and your team. So she'd been having a lot of issues with her Corvette. I wouldn't say they were necessarily Corvette issues, but gremlins, whether it's wiring things, engine things, like all of these things, to where like you probably would have rebuilt that entire car if you tried to compete in it. And in addition to that, she also never really felt comfortable with it. And knowing the E chassis, whether it's an E36 or E46, the characteristics of how the trailing arm delivers grip makes it really easy and comfortable to drive at high levels of grip. Where the Corvette, I think, was a little bit more knife edge, and it can kind of it can bite you if you're not ready for it.
A lot of torque.
That was the
Yeah.
biggest thing for me. It was just never being comfortable in the Corvette. You know, I spent like 2 to 3 years driving the Corvette chassis and drifting it, and then I would go compete in Malaysia, for example, in an S15 that was borrowed, that I'd never driven before,
Wow.
and be on the wall and podium in like my first event in it. And then I get back to my Corvette,
You
and I
podiumed
can't
your
podium.
first event doing?
In Malaysia, yeah. They have
Wow.
like, it's basically like their version of their highest drift competition over there.
Mhm.
It's a borrowed car, and I'm like on the wall in a few laps. And then I get back to my Corvette here in the States, and I'm just not confident. And I'm like, what is going on? Like what is it? And this is year 3, like I said, in my Corvette. And I just knew I had to make a change. Like there was just something about me and a Corvette that was not clicking. And I think there's some people that are Corvette people, and you see it click, and they're amazing drivers. But for me, the chassis, I think there's such a narrow box of like forward to side grip that like you really have to drive those cars hard. And sometimes that's difficult to do in different drift scenarios.
Right.
And I never really became one with that chassis. And I finally was like, I gotta make a move. I gotta do something because this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I did, and I haven't looked back. So.
Well, I will say the Corvette, I'm a huge fan of. I love the colorway that you decided to do with it. That was amazing to see you drift at the past / Motorsports Festival. And you inspired a lot of people with that car. So we're excited to see what you do with the BMW soon. So that'll be amazing. And I love the fact that you brought up the dynamic between you two, which is something I want to dive into. You guys inspire each other. You guys do motorsports at the highest level. Adam, can you tell us some ways that Collete may inspire you in what you do?
Would you have something to say?
No, I'm just laughing.
Yeah, I'd say like a big inspiration from Collete is she comes from a world of racing that I was never really a part of, whether it's the kind of like, I don't know what you would call it, not white glove racing, but what do you call like the more formal professional racing?
I would say just outside of drift, like the road racing and other forms of motorsport at that level.
Like time attack?
At the higher levels, yeah. So I come from traditional road racing. I was pursuing open wheel IndyCar racing when I first started my racing career. So I would say a little more like polished and strict forms of racing versus like this very expressive and fluid and stylistic form of motorsport that we see in drift.
Where I came from, BMX, which is like very much so like subculture. There's no rules. You do whatever you want, and drifting somewhere in between. And I always wanted to, like, she presents herself very professionally. She knows how to put together a sponsorship deck. She knows the right things to say, how to talk on camera, like all those things. If you're in that racing world, like, not that you were trying to go into F1, but like that's the trajectory of like how you need to be. And I never experienced anything like that. So to be able to see her and how well she does in camera and like how well she presents herself, that was definitely something that was a big inspiration to me.
That's huge. That's huge. How'd you guys meet?
I'd say the car community, at least like the online car content community, was very small or smaller, like say 5, 6
You gotta
way long ago.
you gotta tell the actual story.
Yeah, let's do
well,
it.
first
This is
of
my
all,
favorite story.
we knew of each other because of automotive content creation, kind of a small world. But also, he loves to say that I slid in his DMs. I don't know where
You slid
my
in his
camera
DMs?
is. Maybe that's my
It wasn't
no,
really
he loves
though.
to say that I slid in his DMs, and it was for a show that was it was one of those YouTube content networks, back
Right.
in the day, maybe Network A. I don't know. There's a bunch of them back in the day, and it was for a show, and I reached out in his DMs to see if he wanted to film and be a part of this show.
She asked me if I wanted to drive a rally car. And of course I said yes. That was like my dream. I was like,
that was part of the concept of the show was to
that was the big deal to me at that point in time. I was like, I'm going to get to be a part of a Red Bull rally car thing. Heck yeah, I'm down.
Yeah.
And then ghosted me for years. Never responded.
Wow.
Okay, the show didn't end up happening. All right, I don't know, just one of those things where it was gonna be the trading spaces. I put him in my rally cars. I think I was racing Global Rallycross at the time,
Right.
And then I do drift stuff with him or vice versa. And then the show didn't happen, man. It wasn't my fault. But that's not. You'd love to say I just slid in his DMs,
So
and technically that's how we first came in contact, I guess.
And then a couple years went by, and then
Yeah, we had met in person once at SEMA, I don't know, a couple years later. And then a couple years after that was when we started hanging out more. I think it was during one of the drift weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think technically you slid back into my DMs years later because you were commenting on my RX-7 FC that was at SEMA saying how cool it was.
She has a very, very unique approach. And on that car it was very cool how all the different colors kind of went that to me was a car that I would show my friends and be like, yo, the interior in this car is crazy.
Right.
Because I feel like people are kind of doing the same thing over and over and over again. And you had the wild colors with the sparkles and the white seats, which you don't do that in a drift car.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was very eye-catching and appealing.
Yeah.
And now you guys are both doing big things at a high level and inspiring millions of people. And it's amazing to see.
It's funny because I told myself I would never date a car guy.
Really?
I definitely told myself that before Adam. And I've never been with someone that is also into cars. So I just think it's funny that this was a relationship where we both had to learn a lot of things where you're fighting over car space and build space. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's funny.
I've always wondered what that would even be like, because it's both you guys are car enthusiasts, so you got to spend twice the amount of money and you have twice the amount of dreams. And here we are at the LZ compound, and it's you guys are doing things at a level that I've never even seen before. How is it working together? Do you guys are you guys always on the same frequency?
I feel one interesting thing is you can boil it down to be generic as okay, car guy, car girl. But on the surface, I think what was really cool is I had never in my life met someone as driven as she was. Mm-hmm. And I'm a super driven person. I'm a workaholic. She was also a workaholic. So I think that was a really cool thing. And that was even more impactful than the fact that we were both into cars, is being with someone that was that driven to go push themselves, to push their career, to push their goals. Mm-hmm.
Or someone that understood and to kind of relate if you felt that was a little isolating or different, or maybe you're with someone that didn't understand as much or hadn't had that full feeling of understanding.
Yeah.
So
that's a really good point, because a lot of people think everything is sunshine and rainbows, but in reality you're working all the time, and you're always competing with yourself, and that's the hardest person to compete with. Everyone thinks that you're competing with other people, but in reality you got to be better than yourself every day, and you go through different challenges, and then doing the things that you guys do at the level you guys do. It's now you guys get to give each other knowledge and help each other grow, and then also feed a whole community of car enthusiasts. And you guys still young, right? And you have a huge impact on car culture. Do you understand what weight that holds between you both? You guys direct where car culture will be in the next 20, 30, 40 years. You guys make the decisions for what's going to happen in the future. Do you guys ever think about that together?
I wouldn't say we necessarily
really.
talk. I mean, even just talking about it now, I don't really think about it much. I just have always kind of done what I wanted, rather than I probably should think about it more. I think back to the days when we really made 350Zs a popular drift car, and I feel bad that I didn't run a front bumper, because I think everyone should run a front bumper.
Now
And I feel like
everyone's
I didn't run a front bumper, and then a lot of people also started not running front bumpers. But to be fair, I was copying my friend Matt the Ginge. I feel like he really started the 350Z wave because, we all had our broken cars all the time, and then he learns how to drift, shows up at the track in the 350Z, drives so much that he's better than us in like 3 events. And we're just like, all right, we all need 350Zs now. But
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
People will,
you don't have a bumper.
Oh yeah, I have a 350Z, lost the front bumper. I haven't taken the time to put a new one on. And I just haven't been pressured to, but
It happens.
hearing this now, I'm like a little bit ashamed. I'm going to go get a full kit.
You shouldn't be
Calling
ashamed.
him out.
I don't know. It's just like,
should drift cars be clean? Like, you think they should all be clean?
no. I think like I like a car that has like some nice like scrapes and like banged up stuff around it, but like you should still care to a certain extent, right? Like you don't have to repaint your car all the time, but like, if you can rattle can a panel and at least make it match the color, or like attach your bumper instead of having it like lopsided,
Do
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Definitely worth it.
or like zip tie the stuff back together. Like I had the body kit on my car in Japan that probably went through like 20 intense drift weekends over the past 7 years. It still looks like a body kit, but it's held together by hopes and dreams.
That's what happens when you get close to these
Yeah.
drift cars. Like, you see them online, and then it's like, oh, that car looks sweet. Then you get in person, it's a lot of
A
character.
lot of drift stitches.
Well, I ran out of material so I couldn't drift stitch anymore. So I started filling it with white duct tape. So the bumper was missing a piece, but in photos it looks so much better.
And you tried to color match the duct tape by just
Yeah.
picking white because your car is kind of white. So it looks a little better.
Yeah, it
More
looked great.
presentable.
So whose cars, like, you guys are both doing new cars in the new drift season, right? Whose car do you like better? Who has the better car right now to you?
Ooh. I mean, his car is obviously going to make more power. It has been fully tested and developed over time. I'm starting to like the E46 though better than the E36, but I think like visually wise, but I think I'm just drinking my own Kool-Aid at this point. But my car is obviously going to be bright and neon and get the full like Collete spec.
Yeah, you got
treatment.
good taste with how you pick the colors of your car. Like, I seen the S15 it was around the corner in the compound, and that was actually one of my favorite cars that I seen here. I'm not gonna lie.
Did you design the livery for that S15?
Yes, actually, that one I the livery, like the stripe thing, I actually
Yeah.
drew it out and then I hand knifeless cut the vinyl on it. So
Looks
that was
really
my
good.
first time ever doing knifeless from like on the front bumper and then the side of it. Just wanted to keep that one a little more simple, which I do think that is a build that's, I guess, more of an example of how his style has rubbed off on me because that's more simplified. It still has my crazy colors. Like underneath it, it's still wild and powder coated, all the neons, but on the exterior, it's still just that like hint of a livery and it's more clean. And like I love now like looking at his E36, how it has like this past year had hot pink on it. And I feel like I've started to
That was
influence you a
dope.
little
I love
bit
the way
too.
you implemented that. That was pretty sweet.
I love my E36. I think my car's better looking than your car. But it's not her car right now, right? Like
Oh, yeah.
it's how she got it, and like it's been through a full FD season. I think what she's going to do to it, which I don't think you've posted or shared with anyone yet, I think it'll look really cool. The new kit from 2F Big Duck Club.
Yep.
Big Duck Club.
Big Duck Club.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it.
It's sick.
I can't. What cars are you guys gonna bring to the Slush Festival?
Good question.
I know you want me to bring the S15.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
I
Yeah,
want
it's
the S15
definitely
to
like
come.
it would be cool. Actually, we have 2 S15s.
I want to
Maybe
bring the 4-liter
both.
Supra, but I'm just like I get
That'd be
nervous.
Crazy.
I get nervous bringing that as the only car just because like it's had its temperamental times in the past.
Right.
So like I hate going somewhere and then like let's say it breaks on like the 3rd lap and then I can't drive anymore. I'd be super bummed.
Yeah, that's
But
true.
I don't know. So like usually when I bring that car out, I'll bring it to an event where I can bring a second car. So that way like I'll drive that the whole time if it works. But if it doesn't, I have something else as a backup.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But she's got me worried that with the climb atmosphere.
Yeah, altitude
Altitude.
change. With it being NA, it's going to be even more dramatic and
Yeah.
not be as fun.
It'll probably make like 400 horsepower. Well,
Well,
that's enough.
Just
If I
400.
make less than that.
Yeah, just
though.
400, right?
It'll be all right. It won't be too bad.
Well, we get to enjoy you guys both side by side now, like more often, because you guys will be competing with each other in FD now. What is your perspective on that? Like, are you guys excited to compete with each other? Like, are you looking forward to being side by side? And
I mean, I can start by just saying that I'm excited to just continue to learn more from him and apply what I have been learning. So this past year I did some spotting for him in FD, and over the years I've been involved with the team, right? So I've been observing, learning this whole time, and now going into it as a driver, I'm excited to just continue to learn. We're going to be in different classes, so we won't actually be competing against each other, but knowing that we're driving the same tracks at the same time, I'm going to be able to go to him for data review, looking at video and advice. So I think that's just going to add another like cool level to it. We're used to competing against each other in other events. We've done that at like clutch stickers, at the World Tour events. So yeah, maybe one day we'll be up against each other in FD. That'd be
And
cool.
for our viewers that aren't familiar with the different classes in Formula Drift, which class are you going to be competing in, and which are you already competing in, Adam?
I'm competing in FD Pro Spec, and then he's in FD Pro 1.
Pro Spec's basically like the last level before Pro 1, and it does half the rounds of the season. So a full Pro 1 season is 8 rounds, and about every other round there's a Pro Spec round where they will also drive on the same track as us.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. This episode is brought to you by Endless Garage, opening spring 2025. Endless Garage is your new destination for luxury automotive sales, high-performance maintenance, and premium vehicle storage. Step into the exclusive Club Endless, where members enjoy unmatched perks, including access to the Driven Steakhouse. It's more than a garage, it's a lifestyle. Learn more at endlessgarage.com and prepare to elevate your driving experience. When it comes to FD, a lot of the feedback that I get is people don't like how it's judged. Can you share with us some of that feedback on like what are some of the challenges you would deal with from being judged in FD? Like what do they look at? Like
I think one of the biggest challenges with FD is not necessarily in the judging, but it's that they've gotten so technical almost to a fault, to where there are certain calls that optically do not look right to the viewer. And they've done a much better job in recent times of explaining to the audience why they're making a call or maybe demonstrating it. But in the past, there's been many times where there would be a call that makes no sense with what you saw on the TV screen. And with no explanation, it makes you think, why did they make that call?
Right.
Is there some sort of bias going on here? Is someone getting bribed? And it's interesting, comparing it to Drift Masters, sometimes they choose to get less technical, which may be at the fault of the driver, but it's at the win of the spectators, because now the spectators are understanding and feel like the calls are in line with what they're seeing. But as a driver, imagine something happens that's totally the other guy's fault. If you're really technical, you might notice that. But if you're not, you might. So it's in judging, the best way to look at it, you're always going to be unhappy at some point. So it's like sometimes it's going to go in your favor and sometimes it's not.
Right. If FD were to ever call you like, hey, we want you to judge, would you ever take the judge
I
seat?
hate the idea of judging. I would never want to be a judge ever.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of work. You got to focus. I've got ADD, so there's no way. I couldn't even spot for her. I tried, and wound up buying a car in Marketplace during a run.
That's crazy.
Yeah, meanwhile, I'm over here as his spotter for FD last season with notes, man. I can watch a car, and as it's doing the lap, boom, notes. I'm at the driver, next lap, boom. You want to reference what the last guy just did? Okay, I'll look for him, boom. This is how he enters. This is how he's a little weird into like outer two. I got all the notes,
Very
and that's
detailed.
what I get back
I
from him as a spotter.
I was really good at watching her and my friends. But everyone else, I really struggled to pay attention to.
Yeah.
But like I've always been that way with sports. Like I never watched sports at all because I could not keep my attention span. Not football, baseball, not even FD. I wouldn't watch FD unless it was someone that I knew driving, because then I care. But if it's not someone that I know about driving, it's really hard to capture my attention.
So then what about skateboarding? Because I notice a lot of enthusiasts come from BMX, scootering, skateboarding. Even I skateboarded myself. And then now I transitioned into motorsports. It's something that we all end up doing. Who did you watch growing up, like for BMX and for skateboarding?
Yeah, there were definitely riders that I watched more so. And interestingly enough, it was always, there's some unique characteristic about the way that they rode, or maybe the bike that they had, or the way that the parts were edited. But it definitely did get to a point where, maybe it's when you do something so much, you almost become like numb to it. To where like in the early days, I remember being a kid and getting home and like watching just BMX videos all day long. But then when I had been riding for like 10 years, at that point, it was like, I wouldn't watch an edit unless it was one of my friend's videos.
Yeah, you got to find something to like re-inspire you.
Yeah.
Pretty much. What did you think about Bam Margera? Because I think Bam Margera was like a huge influence in car culture and like BMX and I mean not BMX and skateboarding. The purple Gallardo he had was like iconic. Like whenever I think of a Lambo, I think of his. Um, were you a fan of his? Like, did you like the Jackass stuff that he did and all that stuff?
I was never really like a big fan of Jackass, but I loved Viva La Bam, and I
Viva
feel
La
like
Bam was dope.
that
Yeah.
was kind of like an early version of like, I don't want to say what YouTube has become, but like he definitely inspired, him and Rob Dyrdek both, right? Like they're kind of like yin and yang. Rob Dyrdek was a little bit more polished, a little more professional, and then Viva La Bam was a little bit more out there, right? But both of them showed that like, okay, I'm in this subculture industry where like really you can't make it that big as a skateboarder, right?
Right.
But they paved their own way, and Viva La Bam with that show that Bam created and all these other avenues, and then Rob with all his brands and stuff. So like that was inspiring to me watching that.
Yeah,
But
because they used to do the backyard DVDs, and then eventually that took off, got on MTV. Is that what inspired you to start doing the videos on YouTube? Like, how did that come about for you?
I just started making YouTube videos because there's kids that skated in my I think it was middle school, and like they would put out like a skate video, and like everyone would talk about, oh, did you see so and so skate video? So like, oh, that's cool. I should do that with my bikes. So I got a little camcorder, and we'd film ourselves doing like 180s in the street, and that's where I started.
And then at what moment did you know like this is taking off?
It's been slow and steady for so long.
Mhm.
Like I don't think there was ever a moment that was like, oh my God, this like took off. Because I remember in the early days of YouTube, I had like 5,000 views on a video, and that was crazy. But it was just like slowly over time.
Slowly over time.
Yeah, I rarely had a video that would just like pop off out of nowhere.
Well, what was that moment that clicked for you? Like, hey, I'm transitioning from doing this into motorsports.
I wouldn't say there was a moment because I was something I was always like passionate about. I'd use my success in BMX to get my first drift car, to get my first turbo car back in the day, which was a huge deal, but I never really documented any of it. But I had watched another creator by the name of Roman Atwood a long time ago. This was in the early days when no one was vlogging. And I was like, yo, I don't know why, but like there's this random dude in the middle of nowhere and I care about him and his family. What is this dude doing in his videos? So I was like,
That's a good point.
how can I put that into what I'm doing? And I started implementing more so of that vlog structure into my BMX videos. And what it allowed me to do was connect more with my audience as a person and less as a BMX rider, which allowed me to start filming more stuff like what I was doing with my cars, rather than being locked into that category that was becoming really tough, getting hurt, having to go push myself to do harder and harder and harder tricks. It gets very, very difficult when you're at a higher level to continue raising that level more and more and more.
Right. And then you get a lot of feedback from the audience, of course. And I'm sure like that's a challenge you still deal with to this day. Like not all the comments are always positive, or like someone always has an opinion on what you do. How did you fight off that, like to continue to keep going? And same for you, Collete. Like people make comments all the time. Like how do you defeat that?
I mean, I'll go quick, but like, I've been doing this for so long, since like 2008. I mean, in the early days of YouTube, comments were brutal. Like, if you go back and look at some of that, so I've just got tough skin because I've been doing it for so long, but you gotta leverage those comments. I mean, it's the only industry, I shouldn't say it's the only industry, but it's like, it's a form of media where you get instantaneous feedback. You'd be crazy not to listen to it. Imagine if people writing these TV shows would know what people liked or what characters people like so they can include them more in the next episode. They don't get that luxury, but we do.
Yeah.
So if you can listen and you can be in tune with their audience, it's such a powerful tool.
Did it ever hurt your feelings like at one point?
I wouldn't say hurt my feelings. I've always loved like, not PR, but like I love the strategy behind like damage control and when there's drama and stuff like that. I used to get into like fights online. Like whenever there was drama online, I always won. When there was like drama in a forum or a post, like I would, even when I was wrong, I'd still win.
Yeah.
Or are you trying to stick up for people?
Oh yeah. Well, that's usually
sticking up. Yeah.
That's what would get me in trouble is someone would be talking crap about a friend or someone that I knew.
It.
Yeah. I'll just
Sam it.
I just insert myself in this situation.
That's always been my problem. Like growing up is like, I've always had a problem with someone bullying someone else, and then I can't like move myself out of the situation because I don't know. I like to compete. I've been an athlete my whole life, so if you think you big and bad, like, well, show me you big and bad. That I don't know. It's like a weird thing that I have inside me that it's like I just hate when people try and belittle other people or like put them down. So I definitely understand where you're coming from with that perspective.
Yeah, I think for me, having a tough skin definitely helps, I
Mhm.
guess, with any comments. I've never really let them affect me that much, but like Adam said, take it with criticism as well and see if there's anything that you need to look into or apply. Like you're getting real-time feedback from people, which is
Mhm.
pretty unique compared to other industries. So it definitely can be valuable. It does have its negative side as well. For me, again, having thick skin helped, and yeah, it's just I've always been someone to just keep moving forward
Mhm.
no matter what, and just keep pursuing things and figuring it out. Like if I was told no on something, I would figure out another way to do it. And I think just having that tenacity throughout life has just helped me continue to go forward and not really let negative comments get me down as much. And I feel like if you're in this space, you can't let negative comments be your whole world. And you
Right.
can't hyper fixate on them. I mean, if I was going to let negative comments control everything that I do, I definitely wouldn't have started filming videos and putting them on the internet of me
1,000%.
having painting my car pink and putting glitter all over it.
1,000%,
Like
yeah.
that's the definition of something that you would think the whole internet was gonna hate on me, being this girl who's trying to build her first RX-7 and putting glitter and sparkles and neon
Right.
colors all over it. But to my surprise, like the internet was very supportive. Like if
Mhm.
anything, I would say like the amount of positive support and positive comments has been more impactful for me and just really inspiring, because I found out that by just me doing what I want to do and sharing that, it's inspiring other people to just do what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I love it.
Yeah. And, from me looking at it from your perspective, I've always wondered, like, being a woman car enthusiast is something that's growing at a faster rate now than it was in the past.
For sure.
And when you came to the Slush Motorsports Festival, like, you inspired so many women car enthusiasts. Like, it's insane. I don't even know how to even like
Yeah,
put it.
my
Like,
girlfriend included. She wants to get into drifting. We got a C6
I
base.
love it.
it's
Yeah.
so crazy to see. And now there's like bigger drift clinics happening in Colorado for women. There's a lady named Courtney Davis who's leading that.
Yep.
So shout out to her. But you inspired that pathway. And now we start to see more women growing in car culture. In the past, like, the only person I really knew was Danica Patrick. That's what someone would always refer to as Danica Patrick.
Yep. And I will say too, like when it comes to having thick skin, I'm a female in the automotive industry, but I've also been racing for over a decade now. So I love that there's more and more women getting into the sport now. And when I started doing it when I was 15, I was definitely always the only girl at the track. And I don't think I've maybe competed against another girl like once or twice ever.
Mhm.
And honestly, in recent years and in drifting. So to me, I love that there's so many more women getting into it, and it's just becoming in general like a more inclusive sport, like
It is, yeah.
motorsports in general. But for me, I think drifting specifically is being more and more inclusive and open, which is awesome.
Right. Do you ever like reach out to other women influencers like Amelia Hartford? She's doing very well on YouTube.
I feel like all of the girls like in the automotive community probably know each other,
Yeah.
or like we've found each other on the internet and have interacted in one way or another. So definitely, I mean, I think it's growing every day, which is amazing.
It is. Mhm.
And yeah, like I said, even at the local level, it's great. And going to Colorado, like not only were there so many like other female drifters that I met, but they were shredding. Like that
They were
was
going
Yeah.
crazy.
I will say Slush Fest last year was one of my favorite events because I just got to go find all these different female drivers, and I just got in line and I started chasing them, and they were down. Like even if they're just learning how to drift, I was like, "Don't worry, I got you." Like even if you spin out, like don't worry, I won't hit you.
That's
And
so cool.
it was such a rad event because I've never had that where it's just there's all these awesome female drivers,
Yeah,
and I
that
just get
was-
to shred with them.
That was huge. And you're from, like, I mean, I won't say you're from Colorado, but you used to live in Colorado.
Yeah. I went to high school in Colorado. I actually started my racing career in Colorado. So like I started
That's
go-kart
huge.
racing when I was 15 years old at IMI Motorsports Park or
Mhm,
IMI
IMI, yeah.
Raceway. Yeah.
Yep, yep.
That was like my first racing experience was in Colorado. So
Is there any specific advice you would give women car enthusiasts that are looking to either create a YouTube or to just be more involved in motorsports? Like, what advice would you give them, or like how would you lead them?
yeah, my advice to like any like female car enthusiasts out there, even if you're just getting into it, would just be to do what you want. Honestly, just if you want to try something out, if you like something, just don't worry about what other people are going to say or think about it. Just do it. I mean, that's literally what I started doing when I built my first drift car. And my goal wasn't to be accepted by everyone. It was like, look, I'm super passionate about this project. I have a vision and I have to see it come to life. So yeah, my motivation would just be like, if you want to do it, just send it and have fun with the process.
Yeah, I agree with that 1,000%. And shifting over to you, Adam, obviously YouTube has changed since when you started. Would you advise people to join YouTube and take the same path that you've taken? What advice would you give, people that are trying to be more involved in motorsports and they look at the pathway that you took?
Yeah, I mean, as with anything, like start yesterday, right? Like everyone talks about it, just be about it. But as a platform, there's never been a better time to start. In the early days, there was much more so, you were much more rewarded if you've been in it for a while. Like you kind of needed to build your momentum to be successful. And I would say maybe like 5 or 6 years ago, it really shifted where you could just have one video that does really well out of nowhere. It's like the implementation of the algorithm, right? Before it was really driven by SEO. You would want to figure out what people are searching, and that's how you would title your videos, and that's how you get views. Now 90% of your views are coming from recommendations and suggested videos. So you'll see someone that starts a brand new channel and they'll pop off and be getting 1 million views on their first video, which is like, would be so absolutely unheard of back in the day. And there's also so many more people watching YouTube, right? It's like basically modern day television.
Right.
Back in the day, people were still watching TV. They were, spending a lot more time on Netflix. Now, like there's a lot of people that like YouTube is their thing.
Their
that they
TV,
watch.
yeah, that's my TV. I don't even watch TV like on cable. YouTube is my thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys on TikTok?
Yeah, but we don't like focus a lot on it.
Well, it's getting banned soon, so that's
Yeah.
why I was
Is it
wondering,
actually though?
Yeah, I feel like they've
Yeah, I
been
think
saying that
so.
for a while. Is it really happening?
I think so. I think it's really gonna happen. They said it's gonna happen in the next like few days or
Oh, I
something.
don't know. I
like
don't have a TikTok.
that. Yeah.
That'll be crazy. Like I'm not like either way. Like I don't like getting involved in politics, but like if a platform that big gets banned, that's just, I don't know. That's crazy to me.
It is pretty
Yeah.
crazy.
Like that's a big statement. Like
Yeah.
can you imagine if Facebook got banned?
Yeah, that would be tough.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But like to some people, like imagine like we're a bit older, right? But to some people, TikTok is their Facebook. TikTok is their Instagram. Imagine if Instagram just got banned.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that like I'm for or against it, but like that would be crazy.
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic because like from what I've learned, I don't even know if I'm 100% correct, so don't even quote me on this, but China created someone in China created the company, and in China they actually give educational content to their viewers out there on TikTok.
I've heard this.
And then in the United States, it's all like non-educational stuff, which could be kind of a problem. And like you guys being influencers, do you guys see the impact that you have on what people watch? Like, do you have to change the content that you make to keep things interactive and to keep the entertainment high? Like, would you ever sacrifice, how would you say it?
Do you sacrifice your authenticity for engagement?
I would say that like to be successful in TikTok, I feel like I would need to be someone that I'm not. And I think that's why I haven't really tried. Like I'll post videos on TikTok that are basically the same thing I would make as an Instagram reel. But like, I don't know, it's really just a different generation. I wouldn't even say that it's not bad, right? But it's, I don't know, what is it? What are we? We're Gen, I'm so bad at this.
Don't ask me.
I don't, wait, no, I think we're millennials.
Okay, so we're millennials.
I'm a millennial. Yeah,
Yeah,
millennial.
we're
And
millennials.
then Gen Z is the
Okay.
iPad babies? Or is it?
Yeah,
it sounds
wait,
right.
what's
Something
the-
like, yeah.
Yeah, so like no offense if you're a Gen Z watching this, but like I'm straight up, I don't understand the lingo. I don't get the jokes.
I don't get it either.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I can appreciate some of the funny things on TikTok, but like my brain just doesn't work that way.
Right.
I can make an Instagram reel and I understand short format stuff, but I think TikTok's like really short format stuff. It's almost different.
I would
It is,
argue
yeah.
that it's almost blending with IG Reels now. Like some of the content is very, very similar. But yeah, most of the stuff, if we're posting on TikTok, it's usually just something we've already posted on
Yeah.
Instagram. Like we've never, I think for a while, maybe you're making like different TikToks.
And
But
it's an interesting thing about the world because people need to be entertained, and the moment that they're not entertained, they're gone.
Yeah.
So it's like in one video, you have to hit so many peak high points that are climaxes to keep the viewer there. And over time, it didn't used to be like that. So I think in the future, maybe like Instagram Reels and stuff like that, you may have to make 3 to 4 minute YouTube videos just in real content form, but it's all high peaks.
Didn't they change it for a while too on TikTok where they were rewarding longer videos? Like they started pushing
They keep
1
changing it.
to 5 minute videos. Like maybe it was just an experiment, but what's always been weird for me is like on my YouTube anyway, the videos that are less fast paced, short attention span do better. Like
Right.
the ones that I spend all this time producing, or it's a like drift event, there's a lot of action.
It should be the best one, right?
Usually don't do as good with the views, but the stuff where it's hands-on, working on the car, vlog style build content does better. And I
Right.
think that maybe speaks to more the car enthusiast automotive community as a whole, of like people that are like really into it, want to see the details.
Mhm.
So on my end, at least, it's a little bit of mixed messaging because there is this like instant gratification, but then sometimes the longer form, less edited stuff does better on YouTube.
Right.
I've got a hot take on this. So you explaining that, I was just thinking I had something I can relate it to. Like, you know that there's like a huge community on YouTube of people that just watch other people playing video games, right?
Yep.
You
Twitch,
told me
all
about
that,
this.
yeah.
No, but-
Oh, and my little brother does. Yeah.
But
He
imagine
does it a lot.
this. Your builds is like watching someone play a video game, but your polished content would be like if they just posted their like best trick shots. It's less like you're getting
It's the
less of the full
climaxes.
story. Yeah.
It's the climax.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah.
get the ups and downs, you don't get the
Mhm.
process.
I guess that makes it.
But maybe
make
those
more
videos do better,
sense.
so it might invalidate everything that I'm saying. I don't know.
So are
No,
you
but like I have a 10-year-old brother, and literally he just watches hours long of just people playing a game, and I'm like, bro, you're not even playing yourself. He's like, no, he'll just watch someone.
I'm not
playing
gonna lie.
Fortnite or
I used to be
something.
guilty of that. Like, because
But maybe it's the same thing with cars, and I'm just not seeing
Yeah.
it for that perspective. And then I'm looking at myself watching someone else's
Now
build
that you
video,
say
and I'm
that,
doing the same.
It makes so much sense because like I would see a game and I don't want to buy it, but I'm interested in it. So I'd rather watch somebody do the gameplay rather than me buying it and playing it.
I mean, it's the same thing
I
with a
did-
car, I
yeah,
guess.
I mean,
Same
I
thing,
guess.
yeah.
It's not like
Okay.
Supra.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Somebody
Wow.
can just do it. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
understand my brother so much more now.
Yeah, you have someone else take the risk. You guys are the risk takers. You guys take a lot of risks for people.
I mean, I think, that's part of YouTube, right? You get to live vicariously through someone else.
Right.
There's all these like crazy scenarios of people and lives that we would never even have a conversation with. Like you can follow, there's a dude I think is like Ghost Town Living,
Mhm.
like super random channel. And it's like stuff that you would never even imagine. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't watched a video of his in a long time, but I think he bought like an abandoned mine town and like lives in it.
What?
And like he just goes exploring in these hundreds of acres of like wild things. You would never meet this guy, but you get
That's
to live
crazy.
vicariously through him, and it's interesting.
It is. You get to live
Mhm.
another life essentially through someone else's
Mhm.
lens. Which that's a great way to put it. Think about it. Dang. So are you guys actively studying like what works on social media, what doesn't?
Not me.
You're just
I don't really have time. I should do a better job at it. It's important.
Yeah, I feel like I need to do better at consuming more content in the space. 'Cause I do feel like things are changing quickly, but it's also just good to know, like have a pulse on
Mhm.
what's going on. And yeah, I should definitely watch more.
well, you guys are always busy. Like, what does your day to day look like? What do? You wake up? Are you eating healthy? Are you hitting the gym and then going to work on cars? Like, what does the day to day schedule look like for
We
you
got our
guys?
fresh chicken eggs.
It's funny, like the juxtaposition of our days. Like this morning, we wake up. I get trapped by the puppies into staying in bed longer. She goes inside of her submarine. What's it called?
It's called a hyperbaric chamber.
So she goes.
Hyperbaric chamber. Okay.
You
Mhm.
want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, yeah, my recent mornings or past few months, I guess, I've been doing hyperbaric chamber sessions because I got my brain scanned about a year ago, and you can see concussions, right? And the only way to get rid of that damage is from hyperbaric chamber sessions.
Mhm.
I got probably at least 2 to 3 concussions when I drove monster trucks. So
Really?
that actually you can see the damage with this scan that I did. It's
Mhm.
called a SPEC scan. So the only way to reverse any damage is hyperbaric chambers. They have a lot of other benefits as well, but you need to go like daily. And there's no way I'm driving an hour somewhere, doing an hour session, then coming back, like driving back an hour.
Takes too much time.
It's never gonna work with like our lifestyle and how much stuff is going on, how early we got to be in the shop. So I found a company that lets you rent a hyperbaric chamber. Like, and you have it in your house. So my new morning routine starts out with that. And then,
how long does that take? Is that like a 30-minute process, an hour process?
You're supposed to be in there for an hour, but I got this one where I can sit up and do emails. So I just start with computer work pretty much immediately in the morning, which I think you're not supposed to do that, screen time, whatever. I don't know. I'm just like straight up, still like barely awake, and I just go in the chamber and I start doing emails.
So you wake up, Adam got all the dogs on him. You hop in the hyperbaric chamber. You hop on the computer.
So yeah, sometimes he gets trapped by the dogs.
Not always.
Which is easy to do. They're very convincing.
They're very loving.
Yeah. They don't want you to get up and make money so they can have food every day. They don't appreciate that. So they just want you to stay in bed all day. But I don't know. I feel like our days are so different depending on what's going on. Like, is it a new build launching? Are we going to a different country? Are we like about to leave for a month? Like, what's going on? I know for me, a big goal this year is to start working out more. And like, it used to be my life, and I've gotten really lazy with it and super busy. So that's what I'm going to try.
It's good for your mental health. Like, working out is like, I don't know, it puts you on a whole nother like frequency for some reason.
It really is. No, it's like, it's so good. And it used to be such a huge part of my life that I'm, in addition to doing my little chamber sessions, that's what I'm going to try and incorporate. It's tough though. Like, we're the first ones usually in the shop, or the last ones to leave. Like, that's kind of a work-life balance that we're working on, living at the compound as well. So
how early do you guys wake up? Like 6 a.m., 8 a.m.?
Not that early. I'd say the average is probably like between 7 and 7:30.
7:30. And then what happens next for you?
I'll pop a English muffin in the toaster. Usually it's a waffle, but if we got fresh English muffins, I'll eat those over the waffles. Yeah. Make a coffee and then walk over here. Usually, you would think I would ride a golf cart, but the seats are wet in the morning from the dew. So I get my steps in. I don't exercise. I use BMX as my exercise, but I've really started getting back into it, and then daylight savings time hit, and it pretty much like made it really challenging to go ride. Right. So I've been slacking big time, but hopefully I can start riding a little bit more.
And then you're just here at the compound all day, recording, filming, working.
Yeah, I'd say it's usually like, for me at least here, it's maybe like 60 to 70%. Like, it fluctuates based on days, right? Like Monday, all meetings. Tuesday, maybe like 30% meetings, 40% emails, 30% working on a car. Maybe Wednesday, I get to spend 60% of my time working in the shop. Then Thursday is a lot more computer work. And then maybe Friday, I get to spend some more time working on a car. But I enjoy the car stuff and being more involved in the shop, but it's usually the least productive way to spend my time, which is a challenge.
Yeah. How do you decide, like, how do you decide if something is worth your time or not? Because you only got 24 hours, well, technically 12 hours in a day. The rest you sleep. But yeah, how do you decide, like, this is worth my time, this is not worth my time?
I wouldn't say if it's like worth my time, but if it's something that I can have someone on my team handle, 90% of the time they're going to do it at least. Let's say I can do a task 10 out of 10. They'll be able to do it at least 9 out of 10. So like, I'm really confident in everyone here. A lot of times they'll be able to do things better than me, right? Like, I can't fabricate, I can't do, like, if we're talking about the car builds, but anything that I can have someone on the team take over that isn't instrumental for me, I'll have them take over. Unless if A, it's something that only I can do, or B, it's something that I really enjoy, right? Like, if it's just something as simple as putting seats in my car, it's easy and fun and really rewarding. Like, I'm not going to have someone do that. Even if I don't have time for it, and even if I should be doing other stuff, like,
I'm going to get that dopamine from it. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Your Carbon Source, your go-to for premium carbon fiber parts, from grille covers and side skirts to wings, hoods, and more. They've got everything to transform your ride. Whether you drive an Audi, BMW, Nissan GTR, Lamborghini, or beyond, Your Carbon Source has high-quality parts in stock, ready to ship. Check out yourcarbonsource.com and upgrade your car today.
I think for me, like, every day, like I said earlier, just changes depending on what the priorities are, what the schedule is. Some months are so vastly different than others. Like, we're in a different country, or we're here for a week and gone or prepping for a big competition. For example, right now I'm doing a shop renovation, so I don't even have access to
I
my
can't
own
wait to see
shop,
that.
and I'm going over to Drift HQ to start a brand new build. So my days end up being me over there most of the time working on the car and working on the computer. So I think for me, ideally, I'm trying to build out a team and put things in place so that I can spend more time on the content creation side of things.
Mhm.
You know, I've not been consistent with content as much as Adam has been over the past year or two, and that's something I'm really focusing on as well this year. But
Yeah.
you're really only as good as your team.
Yeah.
So focusing on leveling things up, going into FD, getting that program dialed, and then also with that, getting content dialed as well so that I have time to bounce and wear these different hats and bounce in between things.
Right.
So
Yeah, one big key thing that they mention is teamwork. Teamwork really makes the dream work. And I got to see a lot of the compound, and there was a huge team here. These guys have a whole army here. Do you know how many employees you have?
There's like some part-time guys, but it's on average over 30.
Over 30. That's huge. That's a lot of, and that's leadership. Like, whenever something bad happens, whenever something good happens, it always falls on you guys' shoulders. And like, you guys don't have anybody to run to and be like, oh, I'm going through this or that, except for each other.
I will say, like, something that I admire Adam for so much is just like how he has grown with everything and all of his businesses and figuring out that leadership component of it.
Mhm.
Like, there is so much that goes on behind the scenes, especially like with everything that you've seen here at the compound that people just don't think of. Or on a YouTube channel, it's so hard to get a grasp of all the moving pieces and parts and people, and like you see this
Mhm.
one video and you think it's cool, but there's so much that
So
goes
much.
into that a lot of people don't see. And just seeing how Adam has navigated that and the growth and managing teams and people and finding leaders as well to bring onto his team has been so inspiring too for me. You know,
Mhm.
when I'm building out my team and now looking to build out my FD program, like he set such a good example for that, and I've definitely learned a lot.
I want to get you guys' perspective on something that I've always wondered about. And I've always wondered about this for years. Uh, Being a YouTuber, your face is always in the camera. You're the brand. So I always thought if you did YouTube years from now, if you step away from the camera, basically your business is gone. But if you're smart, you start building other brands around that, and then eventually you can step away from the camera. Is that something that you actively thought about? Like, you have a lot of other business operations going on. Like, eventually you don't want to be in front of the camera. Like, what's next after being on YouTube? And to add on to that, do you classify yourself as YouTubers?
Yeah, I mean, like my answer to that, like I don't really like the word YouTuber, like especially like I'm so like old school with YouTube that I was doing it before people even knew what a YouTuber was, right? So then once people started like understanding, I feel like the word YouTuber had like such like a negative derogatory thing, but like in reality, like yeah, I was a YouTuber for a really long time. I probably still am, but I like to identify more so as like a driver and a business owner that does YouTube than a YouTuber that also has a business and drives cars.
Mhm.
But I would say, you know, the weird thing is I've never consciously told myself, okay, I need to, you know, have a business that can exist outside of myself in case there's someday that I don't want to do this anymore. I've always just told myself, like, you know, I feel like whatever path I want to go in life, whether it's YouTube, if I change passions, I know that some of my audience will come with me. Or if I want to open up a McDonald's, like I just had the confidence in myself that was like, I feel like I could open up a McDonald's and be successful. So I never really like thought in the back of my head, like, oh, I need to have a plan B in case this doesn't work. But the Drift HQ thing, you know, is a great thing in that sense that it isn't relying on me and it isn't relying on my face. But that really came more so from just solving a pain point. I had started bringing in part sales onto my clothing site just as a way to be able to show sponsors that didn't sell direct the value that I provided to them. And as I started building it out and wanting to bring more brands in, I just kind of got to a decision where like, hey, if I'm gonna build this out, like I need to really take this seriously. And it was better for me to partner with Duarte, who's my co-owner at Drift HQ, than to continue trying to build myself. And we were able to both, I don't even know, like some crazy multiplier of growth instantly in Drift HQ. And then also me be able to take my part sales to the next level in the matter of say like a week what would have taken me years.
Mm-hmm.
So we're able to work together on that and also solve a lot of problems for people, be able to carry a lot of inventory and take everything that I've learned as a consumer and put it into place to be able to build the best e-commerce platform for drifting.
Yep. I love what you did to do that. Like that was genius. Because I was always paying attention to that. I was like, how are you gonna make that transition? And the way that you did it, like it's inspiring. It makes sense. Like, and again, like you guys have the impact on the future where car culture goes. Not only in the video sense, but in the manufacturing, like what you build, like etc.
So how handy is it to have Drift HQ in-house on your land? Does it help out your vision here quite a bit, or is it more just an e-commerce site that's on the side?
Can you guess who our biggest customer is?
Probably you.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes we'll have an amazing day in sales. I'm like, oh my God, who bought all this stuff? And they're like, oh, we just closed your tab. And I'm just like,
Oh,
Yeah.
the amount of stuff, like the fact that
The
we
monthly
can
tabs.
walk over 2 doors down and get any part imaginable that we could ever want for a car, not only is super cool, but it has sped up build so much. I mean, anyone that's built a car out there knows like inevitably you're going to be missing one bolt, or there's one part that you got the wrong thing and now you got to get the other thing, and a build that maybe could have taken 2 or 3 days ends up taking 2 or 3 weeks. So to have that luxury of being able to walk over there and not only have the parts, but have the staff that knows every single detail of all those parts.
mhm.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's probably the coolest benefit of it all. In my
It's
opinion.
a very cool benefit of it
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, what do they call it? Like vertical integration, or like I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
You
I've
streamline the
never really
process.
thought
Yeah.
about it that way, but it kind of is in a sense.
Yeah, it's smart. It's genius.
Yeah.
Like it helps create everything that you're doing and at an efficient pace. Like it takes a lot to do what you guys do. Like I'm inspired just even being here, and I'm like, dang, I'm like I'm nowhere near where I need to be.
So before the Drift HQ partnership, when did it become less of a personal vision and more of a team vision? This whole LZ MFG platform.
Sorry, can you elaborate just to make sure I understand better?
Yeah, so I guess when did it go from Adam LZ's YouTube channel to this whole vision that you have here going on now, where you're employing 30 people and you're changing car culture in a positive way?
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't really feel like there was ever like a pivotal moment. It was always just like, okay, I can't do this anymore. So like, let's bring someone else in. I can't do this, or I want to go here. And then the compound is really, I feel like, what took us to the next level. And that was kind of based around our ability to close the Drift HQ deal. Because I knew that the Drift HQ thing wouldn't be possible if I didn't get the compound, because it was really important to me to be in the same space as that business. Like let's say Drift HQ existed in Miami. It would be really hard for me to be able to be involved and to be able to be a part of it. So getting the compound and really just having the space to allow ourselves to grow and allow ourselves to build the right team and have the space to build out the paint and body department and to have a shop where we're not like tripping over each other. The space kind of like allowed us to build out the team.
Very cool. And along this process, have you had to weed out any bad apples, or have you just gotten lucky and that the right team has found you? And
I wouldn't say weed out bad apples per se, but there's definitely been people that have come and gone. And, a lot of times, like you might outgrow someone that you work with, right? Like they might have come in at a pivotal time and they were great considering the things that were going on. But, as businesses grow, they evolve, the needs change. And maybe you have someone that loved being involved in everything, but now they can't be involved in everything because it's at that next level now where people need to be more specific in their departments. And like that caters to a different type of person. Because, like I love being involved in everything. Like I would hate to work a job where I just focus on one thing all the time. So I'd say there's all different levels of people that have come and gone, but like we've been fortunate to have a great team and a lot of people that have been here for a very long time.
yeah, and it shows.
Yeah. What are the biggest challenges you both face that people don't see?
I'll let you go first on this one.
I'd say like maybe that people don't see. It's less of an issue now just because I feel like I've done a better job of managing myself, but I think it's just like people, right? People are like the most dynamic thing of what we do.
Yeah.
We know how to build a car. We know how to get a car from point A to point B. We know what we need to do to drive, but people are ever changing, you know? People have things going on in their lives. People may think one thing and say another, and communication is like the most challenging thing in life, and I think always will be. Being able to communicate with your team, understand what they need, understand what they're saying, what they're not saying, and all the things that can happen. Like, it is so dynamic. And
That leadership.
yeah. But being able to do that, not getting sucked into drama, and being able to handle the bad and handle the good.
I seen it on your car, the 1090 rule.
Yeah.
Things happen to you, but 90% of it is how you react to it.
Yep.
Right. And then when you keep your composure, like, you're able to handle things the right way, but it's challenging. It's a challenging thing to do.
And I think it's hard to think about that when you see all the cars or the content or what's posted on social media, is that there is an entire team now that's growing to make everything happen. And that's people, and it's finding the right people, and not just finding them, but making sure that everyone is happy and like focus on that same goal. So yeah, I think definitely managing and people and growing with the team has always been a challenge, but you know, a good one as well. I think for me, a challenge has been, you know, maybe feeling pressure in a good way, where like I have an amazing example to look up to with Adam and a lot of his programs and what he's doing. But people don't understand that like everything that I do is completely separate from Adam's operation.
Right.
So our teams do not cross over. I have my own team. I run my own program and operation, and it's separate from Adam's. Yes, we like work together on a lot of things, especially when we can. But for me, you know, having a smaller team and smaller operation, I do feel like sometimes I find myself trying to chase Adam and keep up with him, which is motivating for me, but sometimes it's really difficult to do that, or, you know, go around the world following him for Drift Masters when I also have my own obligations and competitions and programs that I need to be here and prep for with a smaller team. So I think that's a challenge that I'm still like figuring out that balance, but you know, definitely focusing on finding the right people and growing my team has been a priority.
That's huge.
Yeah.
What are you guys most proud of? Like, if you can say, my name's Adam LZ, and I'm most proud that I did this in my life, what would you say you're most proud of?
You can go first on this one, because I'll need
Wow.
a second to think.
I feel like that's like something super deep, but like off the top of my head, I would just say I'm Collete Davis, and I'm super proud of just going for it. And I like, simply put, just keeping it at that from a young age. I've just attacked goals, and probably blindly sometimes, but when you fail, you learn from that and you pivot and you keep going. And if you look at my motorsports career, I started pursuing open wheel racing with the goal of being an IndyCar. Quickly realized that's a money game, a money sport. I don't come from money, I come from a military family.
Right.
Pivot, figure it out. Oh, rallycross is more marketable. Red Bull Global Rallycross, I can build a program on that. Series goes under, pivot, figure it out. Oh, Monster Trucks wants to bring me for an audition. I did it on the audition. I got the job. Pivot again. Pivot. Like, I've just constantly figured it out and went for it. And I think that's what I'm most proud of. And even though it was a struggle, and at times it's so hard to look at other people that, especially in racing, you know, come from money and just had it easy from the beginning. And it's hard to see that and not be envious in a way, but I wouldn't change anything in like the struggles that I've had to get here.
Isn't life just really about solving problems at the end of the day? Like, you just think, if this is related to this, it's a hypothesis. If this is related to this, then blank, right?
Yeah.
You think of something, you have knowledge about it, you test it out, you get feedback, and then, like you say, you pivot or you double down on what you do. And I love that piece of advice that you just gave, because a lot of people need to understand that. It's like, you're always going to be figuring things out. Like, it's not the results that matter, it's the figuring out. Like Kobe Bryant said, it's the figuring out what matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's funny that you kept on saying the word pivot, because like I wasn't going to take the more general approach, but I like that you did. And I was like, oh yeah, like definitely when I think about myself, I was like, there's been so many things that have happened in my life, and it's always just like pivoting and being able to like make quick changes, which coincidentally has become more difficult having a larger operation and more people involved. Because when it's like, when you have a smaller team, and it, or even if it's just yourself, like you can pivot so quickly and so easily, but it's harder when there's more things going on. And kind of like piggybacking off what you guys are saying, one thing that I really, really like is the idea of just failing faster. Start what you're talking about yesterday and make all your mistakes now, because then you're going to be 3 steps ahead when you would have tried for the first time. So start lean by like not spending a lot of money or time to like get a proof of concept, and then fail faster so you can figure it out. But if I had to pick a more specific thing that I'm proud of, like as it relates to, let's just say, the car builds and the driving, I'm really, really proud of the level of cars that we build in this space, because they look good, right? But they perform, I'm going to argue and say, probably the best in our genre, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, you know, there's super nerds out there that are building amazing cars on YouTube, but in this mass appeal space, the cars that we were building are top level race cars. Even the street cars, I can go and beat the shit out of them endlessly, and they will take it. The heat management is great. The wiring, like the way that the team puts together cars, they don't have mechanical failures. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't see behind the scenes. Is a lot of people that are building cars for YouTube, they're building cars for YouTube. It's just enough to get it across the finish line. It's just enough to get the first start, or maybe get a quick donut in the parking lot, because that last 10% is sometimes more time consuming than the first 90% of the build. So the cars never really get finished. They never really get polished. And I'm like addicted, like our tagline for the brand is pursuit of perfection. My addiction is achieving that perfection with the cars, of tweaking things every little bit to get rid of that noise, or make it drive just that little bit better, make it sound just that little bit better. And I feel like that's a big point of differentiation for me and what we do compared to a lot of other people in the space.
That makes sense.
Yeah, your attention to detail is very impressive. It's amazing to witness. Like on the C4 Corvette, I was looking really up close, and every C4 Corvette that you see, body panels are kind of like shifting. They're not quite matched up, or it definitely doesn't drive like that one probably drives with the RB25, and I assume it's built.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's an interesting car too, because like technically speaking, our shop here didn't even build that. That was the Drift HQ shop.
Okay.
And those guys build awesome cars too. But that body kit, that's a fun, quick story about it. The guys here, Ray and Josh, spent weeks, probably even over a month, just to get all those panels to line up right. We were supposed to sell those kits, and we ended up not selling them because the fitment was so bad that it literally took them a month to get all the body panels and everything to line up and
that's
look
that
right.
That's
last
something
10%.
people don't even know about.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are the challenges. Yeah.
But it would have looked like garbage. It would have looked great from 20 feet away. But if you look up close and there's gaps here and gaps there, it's just like, no.
Yeah.
It's like a SEMA quality car when you get up close.
Yeah.
Incredible.
The
Really.
paint on that car is ridiculous. Shout out if you want to buy it, hit me up. It's not sold
Yeah,
already.
for sure.
Yeah.
Why don't you guys like doing straight line speed stuff? Like, are you not into drag racing? Are you not into roll racing? Like,
Like, you've done
What's
a lot
your-
more of it
Yeah,
than
I mean,
I have.
I love it. It's like, I like the quantitative aspect of it, because like a lot of what we do in drifting is like very subjective. So it's harder to like see the results. Like I'm so data driven that I can make a little change and see it change on a quarter mile time. I'm able to do that here with the dyno. So like, even though it's not drag racing, I can still experiment and make little changes, and I can see the result in the dyno.
Right.
It'd be more fun to go down a track, but it's just time consuming wise, unless I have a private track rental, which like is expensive. I got to go to OSW, and then usually it's like a few hours to get one or two passes. You mess up the launch one or two times, and it's kind of a waste of time.
yeah.
So I enjoy it, and I think it's fun, but I'll usually only do it if it's like a private rental and I can bring a couple cars and mess around. Cause like most of the time, like I'm like addicted to that pursuit of perfection. So I will just keep on going down the strip until I break the car. I can always do better.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best part about it. Like,
Yeah.
life is about experiences. Like, anytime you have a good experience, you always want to share it with somebody. When you have a bad experience, you're not calling your friend and like, yo, I want you to experience this. When you have a good experience, you call them like, yo, I want you to try this and da da da. But you want to keep doing it more and more and more and more. And like that perfection, like that you just pointed at, like that's where it comes from. Like that's where it stems from, which is huge. Supercars. Do you guys like supercars? Do you think the Porsche, you have a GT3 Touring, is that a supercar to you? What's your viewpoint on supercars?
Is that the controversial question
Hmm.
that you're gonna be asking? Is your car a supercar? What is the definition of a supercar? I don't.
Well, I actually recently someone said there's exotics and then there's supercars. So I was like,
Okay.
okay, I can understand where that analogy can come from. To me, like it's very subjective because a supercar is just basically a higher end sports car at the end of the day, right? And then you got the hypercar, right?
Yeah, I'm not involved in it enough to really know the definition, but I feel like I would call a GT3 a supercar, or sorry, I would call a GT3 an exotic, and then maybe like a GT3 RS is like borderline supercar. I feel like when I think of supercar, I think of a car that like makes like decent power, and the GT3s are like, they're arguably, I think, the best cars in the world, but there's cars that make more power and can do other things better and that look more exotic. I mean, you're taking like a GT3, a GT3 RS, it doesn't matter if it's $400,000, whatever it costs, it's still built on the same 911
Chassis,
basic thing that, you know, a base 911 would be, which is still a really nice car, but it's not like this exclusive Ferrari body style, Lamborghini curvy thing. It's, you know, they took a really good car and they put big aero on it and some really cool enhancements. Again, I just want to be really clear. I think it's the best car ever, but I don't know.
You think the Touring is the best?
Just in general,
Porsches?
just like
a lot of people say that. That's a very valid opinion. Like a lot of people believe that.
I mean, I don't think there's another car in the world that you can buy, you can drive around for 3 years, put 20,000, let's say 10,000 miles on it, take it to 15 track days, not do any maintenance other than change your oil and maybe spark plugs, and sell it for more money than you paid.
Can I play devil's advocate?
Sure.
The Huracan. You can beat the crap out of a Huracan. And a lot of people have the Huracan. But
maintenance wise, you know, I don't know this. Maintenance wise, I just assume that there would be probably a bit more maintenance. Now, the cool thing about the Huracan is that platform, that engine, I don't even know what it's called, the 10 cylinder, is it a 10 cylinder?
V10, yeah.
They've used that for so long that they better have that engine dialed by now, right? Like that thing should be reliable because it's not a bespoke engine like you get in some of these other cars. There's so much development. There's so many companies that do things to it. But at the same time, I see them pop up blown and having issues online. So that means they're probably not perfect.
Right. Well, but you will see more 2,000 horsepower Huracans and 2,000 horsepower Porsches, right?
Oh, for sure. You know, as a tunable platform, the GT3 is perfect. You're not gonna go in turbo the and it's not built for turbo.
All around, the Porsche is definitely like winning for sure. Yeah.
But like as a package, like as a car builder, I don't know that I could build a better car than Porsche. The fact that it drives as good as it does on the street, it's as reliable as it is on the track. It makes the power. It stops. Like it does everything that you could humanly want a car to do, without any sort of bad side. You know, the Lamborghini, you got bad visibility. You probably don't have a cup holder. Maybe you can't get manual, so there's that.
That's true.
The shifts are probably a little bit aggressive. It's flashy. You're probably gonna get some Karen that's spitting on your car at the gas station. Yeah, like there's a lot of downsides.
Yeah,
big Porsche guy over here.
Yeah,
if you can't tell.
Yeah,
you're selling me on.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear your opinion on this, because I remember when we first started dating. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember you like not getting it. You were like, why would you spend all this money on a car that really doesn't look that special? It doesn't look that different like anything else.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, no, I feel like I had that opinion because I didn't experience like the Smokies GT trips with you yet, or the track days, and that is where they really shine, in my opinion. And then even when like a random Ferrari dude would try and come up to the group and hang with everyone, and it just didn't really work. And for some reason, these cars just perform so well, and it's so easy that it's like, okay, it takes a while for it to click and for you to get it. I still think there's a bit of me that's like, needs something a little more special, but I would do that with the coloring and the styling if I were to ever get like a GT3, or I'd want like a GT3 RS or like a special edition something. I'd probably have a color that he would hate or do something that he wouldn't like. Right. Because he's very purist with them. But.
Like you see a Porsche, right? And we're not talking, the person's not a car enthusiast. They don't know anything about cars. They see a Porsche, regular Porsche versus like a GT3 RS or a GT2 RS. One is like 400, 500,000. The other one's like maybe 100, 120,000. That's the only problem I've had with Porsches is like,
that's the best thing though.
You just don't see the difference though. You know what I mean? Like,
but that's the whole point.
See, that's what he loves a good sleeper car.
Imagine you spend $500,000 on the car. It's like,
but are you buying it for yourself or are you buying it for other people?
Well, I feel like you got to know, this is a $500,000 car, because that's a lot of money at the end of the day.
So it's funny because like my story of falling in love with GT3s was because like it's actually, I think because of TikTok and because of social media, they are much more popular cars now than they ever used to be.
Right.
It used to be something where like you didn't really know unless you were a Porsche guy what it was. I just remember in my hometown there was like It would have been a 997 GT3 RS. And I just remember I passed it on the school bus one day, and I was just like, this car just looks crazy. It had like neon red wheels and mirrors. And I was like, why would someone do that to a like a new car? That looks like something I would do to my bike.
Right.
And then I think I might have like gone down a rabbit hole of the internet, and I learned like, no, it's like this special edition race car version, street car, where they took all the stuff they learned in racing and put it into the street car. And I'm like, that's so cool. It's like my story of wanting my first 335 was the same thing. It was like, this dude had one at the bike shop, and it was like just this normal run-of-the-mill BMW. This is before there was like a big tuning platform.
Right.
And he told me how fast it was, and that it was twin turbo, and that it basically had like the equivalent of a 2JZ in it. I was like, no one would ever know. I'm like, this is
no one would ever know.
This is the coolest sleeper ever.
Yep.
Like you can have it, and it's so understated. And maybe that's just like, I've always loved those little things, right? Like when I got my GT3 RS, there's no other YouTuber in the right mind that would ever buy a GT3 RS, because they could spend that money and get 2 Lamborghinis, or they could spend that money in like so much flashier, more wow cars. But as an enthusiast, there's not a better driver car out there.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with what you're saying. I see your perspective. That makes sense. Well, what about the hypercars? Like, do you ever want a hypercar? Would you ever get a Bugatti? Would you ever get a Pagani? Would Koenigsegg? Have you ever even looked in that direction?
I like joke about it, but it'd be really hard to justify it. Like, I feel like you'd have to be so fuck you rich to be able to like buy one of those
I want to see you in a hypercar one day. I want to see you both in I think that'll be dope.
I just like, you could like the amount of things that you could do with that kind of money. Like I would
see exactly what you just said.
What?
The amount of things you could do with that kind of money. So then you take the Porsche GT3 RS and then like a regular $100,000 Porsche. It's like, this is a $500,000 car versus this car. And then to the normal eye, it's like, oh, they're the same. They have no idea.
But then hypercar is even worse. I don't think I could ever see myself owning a hypercar. I think if I could, borrow one for a week or like live that life and give it back. Like I've even like, I don't know. Having all that money tied up into one asset that then if you're driving on the public road with other human beings that can make mistakes or freak accidents happen, the fact that I'd be driving around $1 million+ liability, that would take away all of the fun that the car had to offer. Like even driving a friend's car that's maybe nice or expensive, I'll just be more paranoid on the public roads versus like going to a track day. I'd be way more comfortable. So I don't think I could ever own a hypercar without being completely anxious all the time, and like all the other things you could do with that money.
I think the replaceability is like a big factor. I don't think twice about taking my GT3 out. Or like if something happens, I mean, it did happen to us, right? Mm-hmm. Like if something happens, the cars are replaceable, right? But like I think twice when I drive my Mint 964 around, or when I drive my Midnight Purple R34.
That thing is clean.
Those cars are really hard to find. They're hard to replace. And like, not to compare those to a hypercar, but it's like a similar scenario. But like, I really think like to justify spending, like when I think hypercar, I think like $2 to $6 million cars.
Right.
That's just like you'd need to have like $100 million in the bank to justify owning one of those. Because it's such a large risk. I wish that would you call a Carrera GT a hypercar? I don't think it is.
It's close.
Actually,
it's maybe like an old school hypercar.
Yeah, isn't it like a carbon monocoque with a V10?
That would be like the cars that I could think of in the hypercar realm that like I could see myself owning if they weren't fuck you expensive would be like Carrera GT, maybe like a Senna is always like I've thought Sennas are so cool.
Yeah. If your audience, if like 90% of your audience was like, get a hypercar, would you guys do it?
Are you buying it?
The audience.
Are they buying it?
I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I feel what you're saying though. Yeah.
But still, like, what could I do with it? I don't know.
You wouldn't like drift a Senna on the racetrack? That'd be crazy.
Well, I think part of their
good without owning one.
Yeah, without
have you seen
owning
the
one would
McLaren
be
drift
better.
car in Japan? Yeah, that thing's sick.
Yeah.
Doing something like that would be pretty neat.
Or what's that? The guy replaced it with a rotary. It's not a hypercar.
Yeah, that's what he's talking about.
What he's talking about.
Yeah, but the key to projects like that, you got to do with other people's money.
Yeah.
So like I don't know, but like usually projects like that are funded by a sponsor or someone else. Like there's even a lot of cars like that where there's a silent investor and it's actually their car, but like someone else is just building for them, like getting the content about it.
And I'd be more into something like that because it's not just a hypercar or supercar. It's you taking a platform and making it your own. So like that's rotary swapped and that's like the coolest thing ever. So for me, if I were to even to justify spending for me the money on like a GT3 or a GT2, I would rather take that money and invest it in an older Porsche that I build and make mine. Like so much of my automotive experience comes from aesthetics and like the journey and like getting it to feel like me,
Right.
I guess. And
Right.
that means so much to me that I would rather invest that money in those departments.
But the problem is you buy a GT3, it's going to appreciate. You build what you're saying, it will be worth less than what you spent building it.
He likes seeing the Porsche move as an investment.
Well, no,
And
it's
it-
not
and-
it's
and-
not an investment. There's just no loss.
No
you know,
loss,
I've been
yeah.
able to like from my first GT3 RS that I've got, every single car that I've traded up into, I've made money.
Mhm.
And I've gotten to have the newest, greatest Porsche. That's
Mhm.
unheard of.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a
true.
no-brainer
That is-
when you really
yeah.
think about it from a
Yeah.
financial perspective.
Yeah.
Well, I would like to see one day both of you guys experience a hypercar, and I want to watch that video, and I want to see the reaction it gives you.
Have,
Just
you, have you
enjoy.
been in a hypercar? I don't know if I have.
Maybe when they come to the slush event, there'll be a hypercar
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I feel like I sat in a Bugatti once. That doesn't count. Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be super dope.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever been in one. But then sure enough, I say that and then someone will pull up a YouTube video and be like, oh, you just
You were in
forgot.
one, yeah. Well, if we can find it, I'm gonna do some research after we finish this podcast and see if I can find one. But if it does happen one day, I want to see it, and I want to see how you guys react to it. And I want a phone
All
call,
right.
and I want to say, hey, what do you think about that? Because the technology has gotten so crazy these days, and it's like cars are about experiences. Like E46 feels different than the Vet, right? The Vet feels different than the Porsche. I can't imagine what a hypercar feels like.
How do you like if you remove the price tag,
Mhm.
what are the key attributes of a hypercar to you?
The visual aspect. I think
Okay.
nothing looks like a hypercar.
Okay,
Like,
so
Yeah.
it's
it
a visual.
stands out. Like it's girthy. It's like you just know what it like. You know it's worth something without even knowing what it is.
Yeah.
Like, and then also like with Bugatti, they got 4 turbos in that thing.
Mhm.
Like that's crazy. 4 turbos. Like that's really unheard of. Everyone twin turbos or single turbos, their cars, but to have 4 turbos, like I think that's something I would want to experience. Like what would that feel like? So I don't know. Hopefully one day I get that experience myself. But what do you think?
I don't know. Like Collette said, I could probably, rent one or try it out for a little while, but I don't know that I could ever justify that
Own one?
expense.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would freak me out every time I drove it or even stored it in my own garage. I would, be thinking about all the worst case. There's a
Yeah.
fire that's going to come through or,
Yeah.
Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I like the enjoyment from cars versus the stress that cars bring.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
That's a really good way. So I have 2 last questions for you guys. If you can only keep one car in your collection, which one is it?
Oh
It's a
my
hard
gosh.
question to ask.
Category specific?
Nope. Only one car. A zombie apocalypse happened. It's like, dang, I gotta go. Like, you only get one car. You gotta go.
Oh my gosh. You're answering first.
No way. This is way easier for you than it is
No,
for me.
I
Come
know,
on.
but you
Let's be
answer
real.
first because I want to see what type of which way you go. Do you go? Are we thinking practical? Are we thinking emotionally?
That's all up
Are
to
we
you.
thinking which one can do it all? Like,
It's the
am I
heat of-
quitting drifting
probably
forever
thinking
and not taking
emotionally.
the drift car?
Zombie
It's definitely
apocalypse
emotionally
hits.
heat of
Oh
the
my
moment.
gosh.
You get one car. That's it.
Okay, fair enough. I guess you have a bitter list to go through.
No, I mean, like, if there's an apocalypse, like I feel like you're just gonna go after the thing that's the most valuable, right? Like that would be but that's not necessarily the one that you want to keep. I think like if there's one car that I continually get in and I'm like really stoked with the way that it drives, it'd probably be my Chaser, which is like not a crazy car, but it like just kind of does everything. Put friends in the backseat, it looks cool, it sounds cool, it's fun to drive, it's reliable.
That's dope. That's dope.
This didn't sound awful. Like I wouldn't. Technically, I haven't built the latest version of my 3-rotor RX-7, or I feel like I would say that. But since that is not built yet, I would take the Evo 5, because it is hands down one of the best cars that can actually do it all, and it is fun and fast, and you can put people in the back, like you said. And if I had to pick one car, but then that means I'm quitting drifting, so
Yeah,
I don't.
yep.
I don't know. That's tough.
That's a good pick though.
The
That's good
Evo
reason.
Evo is one of my favorite cars, so I might pick that one.
That's a
An
good
Evo
reason.
and a Chaser. I like it.
Yeah, that's good.
Mhm.
I didn't expect that, but it makes
Yeah.
sense why you guys would choose it.
I mean, monetarily, it probably makes sense for you to save like the R34 or the 964,
Yeah.
but
That'd be stressful just saving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't like really enjoy driving it. It's just too flashy.
Yeah, I understand. I got an R34 GTT,
Sick.
and like I could beat the crap out of it because it's a GTR. I can't imagine. That's just like a whole nother level of just like.
Well, you get this like
stress.
It attracts like a different type of fan, and it's like it's cool. It's not a bad thing, but like I get stressed driving on the highway because people like fly up, slam on the brakes, or like weaving in and out of traffic, and it's just I get nervous. Someone's gonna get in a car accident next to me, or
yeah, I can only imagine.
That's why I like the touring.
Yeah,
I mean, if I saw that car, I would probably be breaking my neck as well and probably hit the guardrail.
Beautiful, beautiful car. My last question for you guys, always end off our podcast with this, is if you can give one piece of advice to any car enthusiast, what would it be?
You know,
I feel like I already my big takeaways usually are the start yesterday and fail faster and like start lean, right? Like don't spend a lot of money if you're trying to test something. But as it relates to car stuff or content or really anything, do what you want to do and not what you think other people want to see. I think the cool thing about the car community is it's so individualistic and it really favors all these weird niches, whether you love building OEM plus builds or if you love building neon cars. Be yourself. Don't try to build something that you think everyone else likes, because instead of appealing to a really cool group of people like yourself, you're going to appeal to no one because it's just going to be generic and it's not going to be special. So do what you want to do.
I mean, I feel like that's basically what I was going to say. But I guess I would copy my advice from earlier. It's just in the car community to just go for it. I mean, just try things out, experiment, find yourself, in the car world, whatever that looks like, and don't be afraid to express your style, even if it's a little different than the people around you.
Amazing. Well, I appreciate you both for joining us on the podcast today. You can have a conversation with Collete and Adam at our Slush Motorsports Festival coming up in Colorado. They will both be there, and we look forward to having you guys, and it's going to be a surprise on what cars they decide to bring. And also thank you to Hunter for co-hosting with us today, and we look forward to seeing you guys at the next podcast.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.